Having some difficulty staying awake there? Trying to study for some big exam or finish some last-minute assignment you put off until the weekend, and now it's 3 in the morning and you are absolutely exhausted? Or perhaps you were in a similar state recently, and you're looking for help on what to do? Well, friend, I have just the prescription to ease your weary little mind. All you need to do is win a game. Setting up the game is relatively simple. All you need is an hourglass, a candle, and a marker. Let me make one thing specifically clear. You need an hourglass. Not one of those rinky-dink 30-second pieces of shit that you get in a cereal box or a board game. Before playing the game, test your hourglass to make sure it takes an hour or just slightly longer to drain out all of the sand from the top section into the bottom. Having it take slightly longer will help, but too long or too short, and you'll run into complications during the game. You must also be completely alone in the room while playing. Once you are ready to play, you may choose any room that can be sealed, simply meaning that all doorways and windows can be closed. Any other form of timekeeping device or alarm must be taken out of the room prior, or the game will not begin. The hourglass will be your only time tracking tool, hence why having an accurate hourglass is pretty important. Having anything with an electronic display must also be removed, including TVs, cell phones, computer monitors, anything. Leaving them in the room during the game will put you at a massive disadvantage. You may begin the game at 8 p.m. Make sure that the room is sealed, drawing the curtains to block out any outside light. Then, draw a simplistic hourglass shape on the back of one of your hands. Make sure to remember well which hand it was, since you'll mostly be in the dark for this game. Take the candle and light it, then turn off all the lights. Sit down on the floor with the 3 previously mentioned objects all close together. Then finally flip the hourglass so the sand begins to fall into the empty half. The only source of light in the room should be your candle. Now yell something along the lines of, "I'm not tired, I refuse to go to sleep." Close your eyes and then count to 10. Then open them again. You won't be entirely sure, but somewhere in the room, you'll think you can see the shadowy outline of a man. You've begun the game, and your opponent is none other than the master of sleep himself, the Sandman. Do not provoke him, and don't speak to him either. You've challenged him, and in a way insulted him about his profession, so he's probably not in the best mood to say the least. Now comes the game. Your task is to stay awake as long as possible, to a maximum of 8 hours, which will take you to about 4 a.m. Every hour you must flip the hourglass to reset it and keep the game going. Each time you flip the hourglass, you may take the marker and draw a tally mark on your arm, the specifics of which arm will be explained later on. And don't think you can just flip the hourglass 8 times really quickly, or draw 8 lines on your arm. The hour needs to pass in order for the magic, quote-unquote, to work. If you fail to flip the hourglass before the very last grain of sand falls, or you should succumb to sleep, you'll lose. During this time, the Sandman will be deploying as many tricks as possible to get you to fall asleep or give in. See, the bottom half of your hourglass at any time represents his power, and the more sand in it, the stronger his influence will be. Almost immediately upon starting, you'll begin to feel drowsy. This is merely nothing but his presence. If you can't last against this, stop playing immediately. During the first hour, he won't do a lot. He may walk around the room, but he won't touch or speak to you, even if you try to talk to him, which is something you should really avoid doing. There will be no response. Also, don't move from your spot to approach him. The closer you get, the more drowsy you will become, and if you're not near the candle, he may put it out so you go to sleep. Do not distract yourself during this time. You may easily lose track of whatever time is going on, and forget to flip the hourglass. The Sandman can also skew your perception of how much time has passed, but he cannot affect the hourglass. So keeping your focus on that is the best chance of winning. Side note, if you try to leave the room, you'll find that all the doors are locked, and the windows reveal nothing but unyielding darkness as far as you can see. After the first hour passes, the Sandman may scoff, but he will continue to stay in the room. Now, he will begin to pull out more from his bag of tricks. He's seen that you're going to be hard to put down. The sound of music boxes and harps may be heard, at first from a distance, but they will slowly grow to a level that may be audible and comforting. Resist the urge to close your eyes and listen. Your body will grow more weary as hour 2 and 3 approach, depending on how the Sandman is feeling that night. Around this point, he will begin speaking to you in many voices. The voice of a young girl, the wise cackling laugh of a grandparent, or perhaps the ever-loving recognizable words of your own mother. They will try to congratulate you on surviving for so long with the Sandman, for braving the sleepless days and nights to win the game. They'll whisper lullabies and nursery rhymes just to fill your head. But you know better. Say nothing. Ignore the voices, no matter how real they may seem. Do not listen to them. Do not go to sleep. If you manage to make it to the halfway point, you have 4 hour marks on your arm. You'll be nothing less than exhausted, and the Sandman will be nothing less than enraged. He'll try to manipulate your environment even more, start using new tactics to get you to go to sleep. Instead of trying to lull you to sleep, he'll attack you. Hallucinations will occur. You'll see horrifying images of dead hanging people from the ceiling, flashed up by a spotlight of unknown origin. You may see the room start to close in, and then stretch out, and then close in again, and stretch back out. A whisper in your ear will turn into shouting in your face from some invisible source. Already weakened and sleep deprived, your remaining energy will just be drained out in bursts, just from his terrors. You may have sudden adrenaline rushes, sure, but the Sandman is clever. He'll time them so you can't just survive the next hour by simply being anxious. He'll wait for your emotional state to have fallen to another level, and then bam! 2 rotted feet dangling in front of your face. You can scream all you want, you can beg him to stop, but this will only use up your ability to function. At the 6 hour mark, the hallucinations will shift between horror and comfort, while the Sandman will begin to pick your brain and find what nightmares caused you to come to a cold sweat many a night. Others will coax you towards a slumber, claiming that you've put up with enough and that you deserve a rest. A warm bed to tuck yourself into, a pillow made from the softest furs and feathers. Harps and music boxes will start to overload your sense of hearing. In your state, you may welcome the chance to sleep, but snap out of it. Have you been watching the hourglass? Make sure his terrors aren't distracting you. This is why you don't talk to the Sandman. Every tiny detail about yourself that you give to him, he will use against you here. This is also the part where electronics can become a massive problem. They will turn on, regardless if they're powered or not, and should you gaze upon their mystifying image for too long, your eyelids will droop, your body will collapse onto the floor, and if you just turn the screens away, the Sandman might use some of his muscle and turn it back towards you, just so you can get a better view. The curtains open to a brilliant dawn or a blue sky, but the only truths in this room are your arm and the hourglass. Unless you have 8 marks, the game is not over. Use any ounce of strength you have to flip that hourglass. Now an immense chore from the Sandman's influence. Scrawl a line down your arm with the marker, even if it looks like you're taking a knife and slashing your own arm open. During the final hour, the Sandman will begin to address you directly, asking you questions that appear simple, but as you are, you can't even remember what 2 + 2 equals. A question is the hardest thing to get out of your head, so don't let it get in. Cover your ears and just watch the hourglass. Keep those eyes open. Don't fall asleep. If a question gets in your head, you'll start to think about it, adding more stress and draining what little mental will you have left. It might become hard to breathe, as if something is squeezing your lungs, or the air is dense and hard to take in. The Sandman will also get physical, grabbing you and throwing you across the room, leaving a crawl mark on the hourglass before time is up. If you glimpse his face, that alone may be enough of a nightmare to haunt you and to keep your eyes from shutting. There will be no distinguishable facial features, save for 2 bloody eyes, lids torn from the sockets, just endlessly staring at you. If you can't take it anymore at this point before the 8th hour is complete, take the hourglass and break it with all your might. Both sections of the glass must be broken to end the game. For your sake, you better hope it was made of glass. Anyone who has made it to the 7th hour mark has never had the strength to successfully break it, so they either carried on or surrendered to their dreams. You will not receive a reward for ending the game this way, save for the mercy of avoiding the Sandman's wrath. If you do make it to the end of the 8th hour without falling asleep, you will not need to flip the hourglass again. Simply make the 8th mark on your arm and close your eyes. Though you ended the game, you can't sleep just yet. There is one final task remaining. All you must do is wait for the Sandman to collect the hourglass and say, "You're all grown up now. Sleep when you wish." Open your eyes and find that the hourglass is gone and the candle is put out. Now you may collapse into a slumber. A 12-hour slumber, to be precise. The game puts a heavy strain on your mind and body, so recovery is necessary. But it's the last sleep you will ever need, or at least to that length. Once you've fully recovered, you'll be able to stay awake an extra hour for each tally you marked up on your arm. Depending on your normal sleep schedule, this may mean you only need a small nap, maybe even an hour or 2 at most. But for some, you'll never lie down again. Sure, you may have the ability to if you want to, and you can even still dream, but there will never be any weariness following you. Just think of how productive you can be with that. But it's not all sugar plums and gumdrops. If you mark a tally on your arm that was not marked by the hourglass, you will instead require more sleep, 1 hour for each tally on the blank arm to be precise. You will require more rest to be able to function throughout the day. Now, these marks can cancel out the ones on your marked arm, but if that's not the case, you may have gone through all that suffering only to come out worse than before. And with your delirious state throughout the game, it's unlikely for the average individual to come out with all their tallies on the marked arm. Then again, there's also the circumstances of losing. If you fail to flip the hourglass, then the Sandman will gain full power, and with the snap of his fingers, you'll collapse on the ground, regardless of how you fell asleep, be it by failure to flip the hourglass or just succumbing to your own tiredness. You will also need to sleep 12 hours to recover, but it'll be the worst sleep you ever have, and the Sandman will make damn sure that is the case. The worst nightmares you can ever think of will flood your mind, leaving you unable to escape or wake up in the relief of a cold-filled sweat. All you can do is endure the torture of a dream that feels like a year long. And finally, when you do come to consciousness the next morning, there you'll be, lying on the floor of the room that you played the game in, the marks still on your arm, and blood flowing from where your eyelids once rested. You said you refused to close your eyes and go to sleep. The Sandman just simply granted that wish. I would like to thank all of the lovely patrons listed on screen right now, and if you'd like to become one of these patrons, please head over to the Patreon link in the description. This channel doesn't make any CPMs, so any patrons or PayPal is absolutely appreciated. Dan R, Neophyte Games, Chaos X, Mr. Swiston, Official Jerboa, JY, Pyromancer, Hayden MH, Ethan A, Daniel H, Maximilian Charles P, Deneen H, and Go Go Cute Puppy LLC. Guys, thank you so much.